So what I want you to do, start off with your feet slightly shoulder width apart, toes pointing forward. The kettlebell is going to be underneath you, but slightly behind you. You're going to go ahead and squat down. Stick your butt out, stick your chest out so you're still hinging, all right? Grab the kettlebell now from behind you, okay? And then bring it up. So you're driving your hips forward. Use your glutes to bring your hips forward. Okay, so I just showed you a small clip of one of my patients doing what we call a Romanian deadlift or an RDL. So kind of going back into the whole concept of hip hinging, which I showed or explained to you earlier last week with this concept of moving your hips, just kind of basically trying to avoid overloading the lumbar spine itself. We want to get back into some hinging exercise called the Romanian deadlift. So there's a lot of different variations of a deadlift. One of my favorites is called the Romanian deadlift. The big thing about the Romanian deadlifts is that we're able to finally do a hinging motion, but with some load. Now, the biggest thing that I want to talk about when we try to start loading parts of your lumbar spine, especially using hip hinging, is that we're actually starting to now activate some of our key core muscles, including what we call the multifidi, which is an important muscle structures of your lower back. So when I usually start patients out when I do a Romanian deadlift, I could definitely go ahead and start using what we call dumbbells or even kettlebell. So as I'm going to show you a little bit later, I'm going to show you how I coach one of my patients who actually does lift very well, but she needed a little bit more guidance with a Romanian deadlift. Now with the Romanian deadlift, I'm going to show you from the sideway point of view. I usually start the kettlebell underneath me, a little slightly behind me. My feet a little wider than shoulder width apart, toes pointing forward. That's just how I like to work it. Now, same concept as hinging. We are going to bend our knees a bit too to pick it up. And I'm sticking my chest out and sticking my butt out. And I'm going to reach down and grabbing the kettlebell, activating my core, using my glutes to bring it up. So just so. So now as I lower it down, I'm going to bring it lower until I feel a tension in my hamstring. So we're not going to really bring it all the way down like a traditional deadlift, but just slightly until I start feeling that tension in my hamstring itself, roughly about an inch off the ground. And then we're going to use our glutes to bring ourselves up. So notice how I'm actually loading my hips, losing my core to bring it up. And those are some prime examples of how we do a Romanian deadlift. So going back to my patient, as you can see, as she's performing the RDL with the kettlebell, when she lowers it down, she stops the kettlebell just a few inches off the floor. That's when she noticed the tightness on her hamstrings on the back of her legs. Also note that when she's bringing it down, she's also maintaining the curve of her lumbar spine by keeping her hips hinged. That's when she accentuates her chest sticking out and her butt out as well. Also note that when she brings it up, she's squeezing her glutes to bring her hips forward, but also stopping just when she keeps her back in a neutral position. This is a great way to perform an RDL. So that was a great example of, again, one of our patients in terms of doing a proper Romanian deadlift. Now, again, the difference between a Romanian deadlift versus a straight deadlift is that you're not lowering all the way to the ground, the weight. You're actually bringing it down where you're going to feel a tension in your hamstrings and having the weight roughly about an inch above the ground and then lifting it up. The key concept, again, we're actually loading our spine the right way through our hips, keeping a lumbar curve, chest out, butt out, and then using our glutes to lift ourselves back up as we're activating our core. Now, obviously, in a normal circumstance, when we're picking things up off the ground, we're not going to always do this. We are going to use some sort of flexion component of our lumbar spine. But the reason why we do deadlifts is because we're trying to train our hips and to not overload our spine so much, so that when we're actually doing certain functional moves, we're going to actually properly get picking things up off the ground without causing a lot of problems. Plus, we're also developing that endurance and strength within our whole core system, especially our glutes, especially our multifidi muscles too of our lower back. Now, there are going to be some different variations of deadlifts, which I will talk about, such as a straight deadlift, the sumo deadlifts, and even some other hinging exercises such as a bridge, which I've talked about many, many times. If you're a patient of mine or an athlete of mine, I definitely go over things like the bridges, as well as a hip thrust, which is pretty much a bridge component that's more advanced. But again, these are some certain things that we talk about, especially with the Romanian deadlift, which I definitely love doing. From a Romanian deadlift, you could do a lot of different things. Again, that's a slower version, but a faster version of a Romanian deadlift is really a kettlebell swing. And that's the same movement as this, even with a single arm. But that's it. Anyway, any other question, you could feel free to contact our office, contact me, and I'll see you guys soon.